All of life is experiential. All that occurs within your reality. You are a divine creative force, and you are responsible for that which you create. Life does not happen to you. You live life. You make life. You create the life that you live. You are the master of your destiny, the creator of your fate. Your actions, your attitude, your outlook upon life manifest that which you experience daily. The sun shines bright. It is your choice whether you smile and say, the sun is beautiful, shining bright, the flowers are blooming, and the birds are singing, or whether you say, it's dreadfully hot again, I must labor in the sun. It is your choice when the rain falls, whether you say, the rain refreshes the earth, the grass grows, the air is fresh and brings vigor to life, or whether you say, another wet and muddy day, what shall I do? Trapped inside again. Can't go out when the sun shines, it's too hot. Can't go out when it rains, it's too wet. Well, the sun will shine on the good and the evil alike. The sun will shine on the happy and the sad. The rain will fall on the positive and the negative. And only your own attitude will make a difference in the experience of it. A flood may come, and you may cry that your home has been destroyed, or you may give praise to the divine that the community has become at one and worked together for the first time in years. It is your choice, the life you create and the life that you live. For you are a divine creative force, created in the image of the living and the divine. Does this mean simply that you are created with arms and legs? No. For Kabbalistically such may be true, that you are a reflection even so. In Malkuth from Hod and Yeshud, even unto Tifereth, but is it not more true that you are a reflection of the creative influence So how dare one bewail fate? Fate has befallen one and all. How dare one? For is not the attitude far more important? Is not the divine creative force within all? Is not peace and love within all? You have heard it said the kingdom is within, that the kingdom of peace lies within. Such is surely true. And it is also true that if the kingdom of heaven dwells within man, there also is found the depravity of the pit and abyss. Yet is not the nature of man towards that which is good? Are not all children born innocent? What greater love is there than that a man should give of his life for another? Think you this means that you must sacrifice your being? Is not your time your life? Is not your energy your life? Whether you give of it in time to help the community, you give of it monetarily, you are giving of your time. Is not the businessman who contributes just as spiritually advanced as the monk? Surely so. Even more so frequently. For do not the monks isolate themselves for their own spiritual growth, while the businessman will work within the world at large to help others? Which is least selfish? What of the changes to come? Is there not a time awaiting? Has there not been yet a time spared, or the consciousness of man is rising? Yet there are many changes. For as you have beheld that Germany came one, and as you have seen the decline of the Russian Empire, see you also the decline of your own empire. Yet there shall ever remain trading, and the language shall permeate the earth. Yet the market shall be weak, ever shall there be both rich and poor. And shall Europe rise again? and under what leadership, and with what change. Who gave you the name of a man, saying that his name would be 666? It is not a mark, for the mark in the hand of the right or the forehead is symbolic, showing the submission of action and intelligence. But the name is actual, showing Reformation by Sixtus. Wherefore and how for think you we speak? How will it be that man shall live, there being both rich and poor, and trade and commerce flowing freely, and yet gold and precious stones be worthless? For it shall be in a world of electronic credits, issued per work. Is this not then to tell you that money will be worthless? It is the elimination of much theft. Logical indeed, the beginnings of which you see now in the work of credit and debit. And there shall be a market that will come, one worldwide, and there will be peace, and yet that peace shall be disturbed. And were it not for the East, there would be total destruction. For this, you know that man has interacted with much whom has sought the brokerage of power. Has it not been the policy of governments? Whom has sought the hiding of truth? Think you that you live isolated, the only life amongst the planets? Is it not written of old, even by Moses, that though the children of God be scattered amongst the stars, they shall be gathered together? Is it not written even in the Vedic writings? Of glory terrestrial and extraterrestrial? How think you that such should be hidden? Why? How? Is it not true that the mystics and the holy men in all races and climes have knowledge of the same? then would a few think they can hold that knowledge separate? Love is the energy and the emanation ever of the divine. You may proceed as you will.
Sometimes I wrestle with this question about sexuality and sexual urges and trying to raise those. Should we be trying to attain another release or redirect these in a more uplifting way? I guess is what I'm trying to ask.
Your question is one of the most misunderstood and most troublesome areas of the movement of those who seek for enlightenment. Not because it is a difficult situation, but because of the difference in paths. You would note that much of the Eastern philosophy teaches the subjugation of sexuality. Yet there is also the philosophy of Tantra, which teaches the expression of the same. What is the true essence of such? Let us speak in a moment of meditation, but let us speak first of the use of such energy. If you are comfortable abstaining from sex, there is no evil in abstinence. And if you abstain and praise the divine for such a state, it is a blessed state indeed. However, if you abstain begrudgingly, it is more harmful than helpful. If you abstain, cursing your own desires, you but curse your own self. As to the expression of sexuality, expression of sexuality as a true expression of love in a relationship of love and understanding is a most blessed state. And all things are pure to the pure in heart. But, likewise, if you are sexually expressive and spend your time as a result cursing your own ability or disability to abstinence, you are but cursing yourself. Therefore, if you be celibate and subjugate that power to raise it as an energy, that it might be made manifest, it is a blessed state. Therefore, if you be sexually expressive, that energy might flow freely through you, thus allowing you to be raised in harmony and conscious vibration. It is a most blessed state. But if you find yourself in either state and you are troubled by the same, then the disparity is a troubling of the self. Therefore, if you be a householder, or if you be a monk, live in that state and give thanks, but be not artificially that which you are not. As to vibration, vibration is the grosser manifestation of light. Light is the emanation of love. Love is harmony, the opposite of chaos. Thus all things emanate from Ketha, in harmony, being bound as love. Love not simply being an ethereal idea, but the actual building blocks of manifestation. Seeing that light and vibrational emanation come from the same, for only through harmony can such be made manifest, and cross death unto Tifareth from Shokma. And Binah. Metatron, Uriel, Gabriel, Raphael, Sariel, Azrael, you may proceed as you will.
Before you gave us the techniques on meditation, you stated some names. Can you tell us the purpose of stating the names, who the individuals are? I think we recognize some of the names, and what are their responsibilities or aspects?
You should be aware that the names that were called were archangels associated with the spheres of the Kabbalah and even with that of death or death. And as such, you see that Metatron is a direct correlation to Ketha. As such, each was the name of an archangel of a Kabbalic aspect. When names are called, the vibrational influences of those names become manifest. Thus, it is that the energy or the vibration being present may be felt. It is much the same. You should know that all paths to the divine eventually lead to love. Thus all paths eventually lead by devotion. Is this not the principle of chanting in the East? It is not for a vain repetition, but rather to align oneself with the vibrational aspect of the divine, that the name of the God force is repeated. You may proceed as you will.
I'd like to change the subject just a little bit. I have a little anecdote which will be short, and then I'll ask the question. Their spaceship came down from the heavens, and out of the spaceship fell a book. And people went to pick it up. This is a very public thing, and they couldn't read what it said, and they put the thing, they entered all the things into a computer and finally discovered what the title of the book was. And the title was How to Serve Man. And everyone was just ecstatic about that, thinking that these entities had come to Earth to help mankind in every way, until it was discovered that it was a cookbook. Now my question. How do we know in our exposure to aliens or entities that come in from outer space, whether they're friendly or not, even if they might appear to be friendly initially? And what should we use as a guide? The second corollary question is, how do they overcome the limitation of the speed of light to arrive at our Earth? Thank you.
As to the inference of the possible barbarity of entities, know you that your planet is one of the more barbaric planets, that it is a wonder that these entities, knowing they may be shot at, attacked, bother to try to help man. And if they are unfortunate enough to be removed from the sky, it is men that would be accused of having a cookbook, dissecting the same to see what it is. Yet you must also realize that wherein you speak is true, in that there is not only life in other aspects planetary, but also in other dimensions. As to the speed of light, remember that light is a non-solid, and that light is not as fast as thought transference, and that thought transference also rides upon the minute electrical waves manufactured by the physical aspect of the being. Thus, thought is an energy. it would be said that there are dimensional aspects of travel that you have not realized, correlating thought and doorways into time. You must also realize that your mathematical assumptions are still somewhat primitive. For you assume, according to the theories of Einstein, that the speed of light may be approached but never reached. And in your faulty mathematical reasoning, such is the case, according to your theory. But even you know that, according to Einstein's theory of relativity, that there was a minimum of 6 dimensions. Einstein was aware of the same. This has become known as the smudge factor of the theory of relativity. The interaction of the dimensions and the doorways of the same. That time and its relevance becomes a moot point. Time, as you understand it, is non-existent. It is a man-made delineation. Quantum physics, in its current advancements, will more of the crude theories that have been held as absolute truths. You are about to see again emergence of the spirit and the scientific community. For many things that have been taught in the philosophical and spiritual realms will prove themselves scientifically. However, there is much superstition that also must be done away with. You may proceed as you will.
I read a book several weeks ago. Could you comment on that?
You will note that your country maintains freedom of the press. Whether that which is written is true or not is inconsequential. The press allows for a great deal of freedom and leniency. Objective. There have been many things written. Has it not also said recently that days of darkness were about to befall the earth? Have you seen yet that darkness? People are always willing for the more dramatic to be imposed, to go after that which is more dramatic, while avoiding the responsibilities of the immediate necessity to love one's self. to love one's neighbor. You are created in the image of the divine. If you would love the divine, then you must love yourself, for you are created in that image and sustained by the energy of the same. If you would love the divine, you must love your brother, your sister, your father, your mother, your neighbor, your countrymen. For each is created in the image of the divine and sustained by the force of life from the same. Yet what is it of the bands of emanation and radiation and the alternate realities? We speak now in a form concealed and yet open. Did not Robert Monroe speak of the same? How is it that one sees what another cannot? For each dwells in a different state of consciousness. You may proceed as you will.
Could you please elaborate on soul growth upon various planes of existence?
You are a physical body, mind, body, and spirit. But when you leave the physical body, the life does not cease, does it? And if the life be not ceased, if the cessation has not come, then there must continually be growth. Soul growth here is presented through interpersonal relationships which give the opportunity and challenge for soul growth. Think you, because you shed the body, that the opportunity is not continually present? This teaching is of old, misunderstood and applied to the astrals, gave the result of the ancient conception of hell and purgatory and limbo. Are these not simply the astral realms? The realms made manifest even in Kabbalah. It does not matter whether you utilize the theology and symbology of the East or the West. It is the same. Does not even the Vedic scripture say that according to the soul growth and advancement within this incarnation is the determination of how and where even the planet of incarnation? Then those entities that you might shoot from the sky and butcher, may they not even be your very own, advanced with souls the same as yours? You may proceed as you will.
Do you think in our generation we'll see a nuclear war? Is there anything to fear? and the shifty axis which may come, is there anything to fear?
The wars, as prophesied by Nostradamus, will occur in a limited fashion. Note that Nostradamus gave prophecies of peace as well as of war. And there is a crucial crux at which point mankind has a choice. All prophecy is conditional. Even the dire scenes of Revelations may be avoided. Just as the prophecies of Jonah were avoided by the children of Nineveh. All prophecy is conditional according to the consciousness and the actions of man, individually and collectively. As to the pole shifts, there have been many of the same. The earth has survived quite well, has it not? Yet mankind, is it not still present also? It is not as important to worry about such as it is important to worry about the soul growth and development of the individual consciousness. If you prepare the spirit, all else is of no concern. For if you prepare the spirit and you depart the physical, you have gained far more than you have lost. And if you prepare the spirit and you walk upon poisoned ground and you are not poisoned, and you drink poisoned water and you are not poisoned, and you walk through fire and you are not touched, then have you not also gained? Yet have you not gained as much as those who have entered into the light? You may proceed as you will.
In regard to the coming earth changes, you had said that the best way to prepare for them would be to be dead. Do you have anything further to add to that?
It must be realized that such was a statement of dry sarcasm. That is to say that the best way to prepare the self was to leave the body. That is not to advocate that one should leave the body. In necessity, the truth is that the best way to prepare is to prepare the spirit through active, outgoing love, charity. You may proceed as you will.
I'd like to know what is the best way that we can work through the fears or the mental blocks or the patterns that we've developed.
First, you must recognize the pattern that had created the fears. If you know the fear, then you must know the pattern that has created it. Then, knowing that, it may be released, and a concerted effort may be made, utilizing meditation or hypnotics, which is no more than a guided meditation. to overcome and surmount the same. Release is the key. You are going now to say, but how do we release? It is simple, and in its simplicity becomes difficult. For to release is to let go of the attachment to the same. No more, no less. Whether you do so through meditation or resculpturing the thoughts through meditative tapes or through cognitive balance by ritual or ceremony is irrelevant as long as it is done. You may proceed as you will.
The necessity for the healing of the races, how can we best help now?
In truth, there are more tensions, more troubles than most individuals are willing to accept, acknowledge, or realize. The work must be done collectively, yet it has to occur individually with each and every entity. This is the time for the preparation of the Christed consciousness. It is the time for the raising of the vibrational rate of man. Time for initiation of the masses. Not some pretend initiation, but an actual raising of the vibration energy of the individual beings. Such can and must occur. It is the time that children must be valued, education must be focused upon, and parents must begin again to love their children with their hearts and their souls. And the youth must again be brought with respect to love their parents. For this is the beginning of the initiation of the consciousness of the divine, of the Christed. For this is the opening of Tifareth even into Shakma. For this is the materialization of the ashram of the second ray. What is ashram? The place where one exhausts self, that is to let go of the ego and become at one with the divine. You may proceed as you will.
I'd like to ask you about the missing years of Master Jesus, where he traveled. He taught secretly, esoteric and exoteric. People couldn't read and write in his days, 2,000 years ago. Give us about his Holy Family.
You are aware that he traveled in India and in Tibet, even so that he taught and learned in the monasteries of the same. You are aware that this was from the age of 13 onward, after he was espoused, before he was given in marriage. And it would be so also that he traveled amongst the British Isles for this with his uncle Joseph. And it would be seen that even as such there were records in the monasteries in the east of his travels. And he returned to his peoples, being an Essean, as was also his cousin John. And you realize that he left church as it was leadership not to Peter, but the first church was left to James, who headed the church at Jerusalem. All of this is clear and on record, both in your own Holy Writ and in the Holy Writ of the monasteries of the Buddhist. The lost years of Jesus, the missing years, they are documented and recorded. You may proceed as you will.
Collectively, what, if any, one thing is it that this group needs to know?
That the divine is within, that you can search without forever and not find that which is within. But if you look within, you shall find the truth, the light, the wisdom, the love, the kingdom of the divine. Teachers do not give knowledge from without, but true teachers stimulate the knowledge within, that an individual may experientially grow on their own. Good and evil, love, the kingdom of the divine, it is within. If that be so, then you, being body, mind, and spirit, are that which you live, for the life is the reflection of the mind-spirit. The knowledge you have is of no value unless it is put to use. Wisdom and love must hand in hand ever be present. Is there more that should be said? You may proceed as you will.
Could be life in inner Earth, in this planet. The next question would be the abominable snowman that everybody talks about. Is there such entity?
As to the ramifications often thought of in reference to the Bermuda Triangle, it is true that much of the occurrence there is due to circumstance as well as to space-time continuum. It will be found that the triangle is a rich resource of natural gas, which is crushed upon itself in a frozen form and violently disrupts when delivered to the surface and exposure to the same, disrupting both water and air patterns. Such, if properly tapped, is a viable resource which is readily renewed and can be of great benefit to mankind. As to the Yeti, it exists. It travels a path in North America covering even so into Maryland and Rockville upward, even as such into Washington State. It would be said that much the same exists in the Himalayan ranges related closely. You must realize that the panda and the gorilla were only recently found. Man is not aware of much that is on his planet. You may proceed as you will.
What will the Michigan and Ohio area go through during the planetary changes ahead?
Do you enjoy saltwater fishing?
Sure.
You may proceed as you will.
We were talking about books earlier, and a couple of books that I would like to ask you about are The Keys of Enoch, the Urantia book, and books by Barbara Messiniak. And also, while you're talking about the saltwater, what about selling the house and going on a cruise around the world?
As to the books relating to aliens, of no consequence. As to the Urantia, such is intentionally misorganized, giving wrong attributes and misdirection for the purpose of retaining knowledge. As to the Keys of Enoch, it is an excellent meditative guide, not a necessity, but a good meditational work. It is not a work simply to be read, but one to be used for meditational purposes. As to selling of a home, it is better to prepare the spirit than to prepare the physical. And you must realize that time constraints are not set, but rather are according to consciousness. Further, there will be islands that will survive, and there will be places considered safe where losses will occur. It is very important that you consider individual consciousness and collective consciousness of the area in which you would desire to be. Do not assume that an area full of those whom believe themselves to be spiritually enlightened will necessarily be spared. For it should be noted that many of those whom consider themselves enlightened are but pompous fools, and many whom never have heard of metaphysics have true love in their hearts. It is not what one knows in the mind, it is what one lives emanating from the heart. You may proceed as you will.
This morning you referred to the destruction of our empire. Is that going to relate to the one world market?
It surely shall, and to the rise of the power of the European nations, who shall be bound together. Their language shall be a dividing factor. Yet man worldwide will speak English. Yet the common language will allow a great advancement in knowledge and a great advancement in ability to achieve and to accomplish. But the barriers of culture and language shall be a great stumbling block within the European nations. Yet power shall be attained. Power that would be lethal indeed if it were not for the East. The mad dogs of the East, the Asiatic nations, referred to as mad dogs, for the dog is the symbology of the guardian, and the mad shows the fervor. Those Caleb shall be the Savior, for it shall be the East. Caleb is Hebrew for the same. You may proceed as you will.
2 weeks ago, almost to the day, this has to do with markets again, I had what I consider to be a prophetic dream. I was standing in an open marketplace and a storm came up with rain, thunder, and lightning. I turned to the west and the sky was clear in the west, but the clouds were racing along the horizon from the right to the left. And the clouds broke up and were forming men on horses. And I turned to the two people in front of me, two gentlemen. I said, "Did you see that?" And the gentleman said, one of the gentlemen says, yes, no, he didn't see it. He said, what was it? And I said, well, it was the clouds. They made shapes like men on horses. He says, oh, right. He says, all the king's horses and all the king's men. I had help in interpreting the dream, and what we came up with was that it was almost the imminent collapse of the United States financial markets and possibly the government. Is this a correct interpretation?
The same is true, and the response shows the ignorance and the unwillingness of the average individual to accept and understand the obvious. You may proceed as you will.
You mentioned about gold not being worth anything in precious stones. Are you referring to commodity-wise, or are you referring to them in a financial sense?
When you understand the aspect financially, even now gold is worthless, for your money is not tied to gold in its value. How much more so when you are removed from the use of paper money and all transactions fall within direct electronic credit and debit, as shall occur and shall prevent common thievery, and many problems shall create its own source of thievery and problems. It was prophesied of old that people would be starving, and that though gold be piled in the streets, they would say, I will give you my gold for food. They would say to leave with that worthless gold. It is but yellow trinkets. For the supply of gold is plentiful. Only the electronic credits are worth anything in truth. For the monetary system shall be changed, and the abundance of gold and gems will be much. Thus it is not to say that food would be so scarce that it could not be bought with gold or gems, but rather to be said that they are no longer of monetary consequence. The whole system shall be electronic credit and debit. Even now, know you, such computer as sits in New Jersey runs all of the credit, reference, and work nationwide to one building, and yet there is always a backup. Know you the consequence of the same? One world, one government, one monetary system, one madman, and you have a problem. You may proceed as you will.
Is it too late for us to stop this? Would repealing the GATT agreement or some of those things with our political leaders help?
It is not a case of stopping or changing the course of history. It is a case of changing the spirit and the soul within. Do you not think that the consequences will lead to a situation that will bring a change in consciousness and eventually will be for the evolution of all of mankind? All things work for the good of those that love and honor the divine. Know you that there is grave danger in the proclamations that must be made. There are many who would not have you know. There is much at stake, much to be lost and much to be gained. Yet, the governments and the powers that be will find themselves at the same odds as China has now found herself trying to deal with the Dalai Lama. Lamaic succession means that death is inconsequential. So it is with the passing of the Spirit. The silence of one holy man, one mystic, is of no consequence. For the Spirit shall fall freely. You may proceed as you will.
This morning you spoke of, when you spoke about the one world market and one world mind, you stated that there would be peace, but it would be disturbed. When are you talking about, and specifically what are you talking about?
When the European market attains power, it shall attain peace and unity, and people shall be bound by a common thread of religious faith. And there shall be a time of total and complete peace, even worldwide, until it is realized that man cannot live in subjugation, that good theology that subjugates is as evil as any other theology that subjugates mankind. And there shall be a great disruption, and there shall be war, and there shall be war unlike that previously seen. And were it not for the intervention of the East, there would be no more humanity alive. Now understand, we speak in parts and in pieces. If you study, you can find the whole picture. We give you that which is of the more immediate urgency. You may proceed as you will.
I want to ask you about the one world government possibility with international bankers behind the invisible forces like the Trilateral Commission, Bilderbergers, Rothschild families. And I want to know if Germany learned their lesson at the end. Are they not going to believe in this European common market, and which will be the leading religion that leads us back?
Germany shall be united as one. 'Twas said of old, and now it is come. And thus it will be the Reich that shall lead the same. As to the faith, what faith is universal? What word has the meaning universal? Who claims to be the vice-regent of God? who can choose a name as desired, with whom in history 5 previous times has Reformation been associated? Has it not been Sixtus? Is it not true that the Word of the translation of Revelation can mean both reformation and falling away? You have spoken wisely. Do not cease to seek wisdom, nor fail to share wisdom with those who will understand. But ever remember, it is your duty to lead a horse to water, not to drown it, trying to make it drink. You may proceed as you will.
When we see these words coming to play, the Sixtus, or the Six of Sixtus, what can we be doing to helping reform, or to helping in our own way with our own enlightenment and that of others? Is that what we are to do when we see these words coming up?
You are now doing that which is necessary. You are seeking further enlightenment. You are praying and you are meditating, and you are lifting the conscious awareness of others. The true work is outgoing charity and love. It is of little importance to shut the barn after the sheep have left. But now is the time. Now is ever the appointed time, for the future is not yet, and the past is gone. You may proceed as you will.
In the three-dimensional universe that we experience,
there is no three-dimensional universe.
What we perceive as three-dimensional, can the force of gravity be neutralized, possibly reversed? If so, how? And is this a process by which the pyramids were built?
The force of gravity can be neutralized and or reversed using magnetic and or vibrational and electrical fields. Thus, such can be done with sound or electric. This was not the way in which the pyramids were built, though it is the way in which some were built. You may proceed as you will.
Follow-up question on that. Many of the pyramids weren't built in this fashion. What was used to lift these enormous blocks of stone or granite, the distances that they had to be moved and lifted? What process?
The same vibrational consequence that was used to move the blocks of pink coral. You may proceed as you will.
Yes, if gold and silver and jewels will be of little value, what would you have your assets converted to in the light of the debit and credit and the electronic age?
There will be those who will barter. They will barter goods that are actually used. And there will be the electronic credit, which will be internationally accepted without problem of rate or exchange. Most people will convert their assets to the electronic credit. There will still be those who will buy and sell real estate and land and houses and gold and coins. But they will only be good as they can be liquefied into electronic credit. Investments will still be in the very great multitude of things, in business, in stock, but it will be liquefied to value as an electronic credit. You may proceed as you will.
You mentioned that Jesus was being taught in India, I believe, before he was espoused. Does this imply that he was married? And if so, what is the name of his wife, and were there any offspring from this marriage?
The implication of such would be that you should remember that he was an Issean, and the Issean marriages were much as the marriages in the Shaker communities. If we tell you the name of his wife and that he had children, there will be many who will say, then he is not spiritual. If we tell you that he had no children, there will be many that says, how can he be a master and be impotent? Yet, it was common custom that rabbis be married. And it is common knowledge that Jesus, the one whom was of the Christed spirit, was accepted as a rabbi. You may proceed as you will, understanding the implications of what we've said.
Yes, I'd like to know a little bit more about the process that we've heard about called Ascension.
Ascension is not spontaneous combustion. Ascension is the raising of the vibrational or vibratory rate of the being. The Christed one ascended, as did Elijah, and as did Enoch, and as have some of the masters of the East. So dissipating self in an ionic or atomic cloud of effervescence by raising consciousness. For when it is written that the Christed one ascended into the clouds, it does not mean he was lifted. Although such is true to an extent, but it means rather that he dematerialized into the vaporal essence and into nothingness in the presence of those that were with him. A more astounding question. How new Peter at the Mount of Transformation that the Christ did one was with Moses and Elijah. Having never met nor seen Moses nor Elijah, yet he instantly recognized them. Is this not because that the soul essence of a being is far beyond the physical? Have you heard it asked in the past, how when you die will you recognize your friends? If they have been incarnated many times, how will you know them? Which incarnation will they be? You will recognize the soul aspect, the very essence of the being. Just as Peter recognized Moses and Elijah. Peter had seen John the Baptist, and John was Elijah. Yet he recognized him for his soul essence, else he would have called him John. You may proceed as you will.
Question regarding multiple incarnations in different planes. Because of so many different incarnations, how would you have a home base? What would you feel as home, even though the real home is with the one?
Should we make this more complicated? Generally, individuals think of incarnations as being lineal, yet it is not true, for incarnations can be also at the same time simultaneous. If incarnations can be simultaneous, it is then to be realized that time is non-existent. Yet you are self within the being of self. Home is the realization of the God self, the divine. We will continue as you desire, when you desire, as is manifest for the benefit. We would leave blessings and peace